Okay, well, hi everybody. I'm Lauren Underwood, and I have the honor of representing Illinois' 14th Congressional District. I am so glad to welcome you to today's session to learn more about the federal grant process at the National Endowment for the Arts, or NEA. As you know, in March, Congress passed the American Rescue Plan, and it continues to deliver relief for communities across the nation, and yes, our very own 14th Congressional District. We're getting students back to school safely, businesses back open safely, and vaccinations in the arms of Americans. It's also making sure that cultural institutions that are part of making our communities so special, like the Arcata Theater in St. Charles or the Opera House in Woodstock, have the resources that they need to reopen safely. And I'm grateful to see the progress that we've made as a country as we work to defeat COVID-19 and hopefully return to normal life as quickly and as safely as possible. Now, in addition to providing funding to school districts, local governments, and individuals, the American Rescue Plan provided additional funding for the National Endowment of the Arts. The American Rescue Plan allocated $135 million to the Arts Endowment, allowing the NEA to develop the American Rescue Plan grant to support organizations and jobs in the arts sectors that have been impacted by the pandemic. According to the NEA's research, this funding will support approximately 234,000 jobs and reach an estimated 107 million people across 1,000 distinct communities, 23% of which are likely to be in rural or non-metropolitan areas through the organizations that will be awarded the grants. So shortly, I'm going to be joined by NEA staff to share information on the American Rescue Plan grant, as well as other competitive grants at the NEA, including the Our Town grant and the Challenge America grant. Now, advocating for federal funding that will benefit the residents of the 14th District of Illinois has been one of my highest priorities in Congress. My team is here to make sure that nonprofits and local governments and other eligible grant seekers have the tools and resources that you may need to apply for federal grants to support your own local projects and initiatives. Now, in addition to the information that you'll receive today, I also have a federal grant resource guide on my website that has an overview of the grant process, as well as tips and best practices for all the stages of the application process. My team also sends out a monthly grant newsletter to alert you to new grant announcements and to share information about grant programming from my office, like this webinar today. So if you want to receive the grant newsletter or download our grant resource guide, please visit my website at underwood.house.gov. And don't hesitate to reach out to my office if we can ever be of assistance throughout the federal grant application process. From helping to identify grant opportunities to writing letters of support, my office is here to help you and your organization. So let's jump right into why we're here today, to learn more about the National Endowment for the Arts Grant Program. And I'd like to turn it over to Michael Orlov, who is the Director of State, Regional, Local, and International Partnerships at the NEA, to get us started on the presentation. Thank you, Michael, for being with us. So grateful for your time and expertise, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone, and we really appreciate you spending some time with us today. As the Congresswoman said, my name is Michael Orlov, and I'm actually zooming in from downtown Chicago, located on the traditional unceded homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi nations. I'm actually born and raised here, so it is really good to be back home for the first time to see my family since before the pandemic hit. I really want to thank Congresswoman Underwood for this opportunity to share information about the National Endowment for the Arts and funding opportunities that exist at our agency. And what an incredible introduction to this webinar and our work. Thank you so much, Congresswoman. We really appreciate this opportunity. As you can see on the screen, we are an independent federal agency created in 1965 that funds, promotes, and strengthens the creative capacity of our communities by providing all Americans with diverse opportunities for arts participation. In fact, We take great pride in knowing that our budget extends to the entire country. The National Endowment for the Arts is making investments in all 435 congressional districts throughout the United States. So we are going to spend the next 15 minutes or so walking you through the various grant opportunities that exist within our agency and leave plenty of time at the end for questions. And walking you through these slides are my amazing colleagues, Mary Sellers and Lara Holman-Giratano. And the timing is quite good, actually. We just announced yesterday our American Rescue Plan funding guidelines. So you're hearing about it really hot off the presses. So thank you all for being here today. Again, thank you, Congresswoman Underwood, for this opportunity. And I will pass the mic to my colleague, Lara.
Great, thanks, Michael. At the National Endowment for the Arts, our funding supports arts projects. And on the left side of the screen here, you'll see the types of organizations that are eligible to apply for funding. Eligibility is open to tax-exempt organizations, and that includes 501c3 nonprofits. It includes units of state or local government, such as local arts agencies and educational institutions. And it also includes federally recognized tribal communities or tribes. On the right side of the screen, you will see examples of things that we're not able to fund, which includes things like general operating support, individual artists, commercial activities, and fiscal sponsors. There is a complete list of items that we're not able to fund, which is published in program guidelines. Those are all posted on our website at arts.gov. And I should clarify one thing on general operating support. We do have new legislation related to allowing previously awarded grants to be used for general operating support. So if you have a previously funded award, you may be able to transition that into general operating support. However, currently all of our regular annual funding programs, all of the programs for this year, for fiscal year 2022 will continue to be for project-based applications.
Thank you, Lara. So there are some requirements that you must meet in order to be eligible for a National Endowment for the Arts grant. So first, you have to be a nonprofit at the time of your application. You must have 3-year history of arts programming. You must be in compliance with reporting requirements for previous NEA grants. And you must provide a 1-to-1 cost share match of non-federal funds. And this can be achieved in a variety of ways, including income through ticket sales or donations of space, or it can be a combination of both in-kind and cash match.
And our grant review process includes 3 levels of review. The first level of review is a citizen panel, which is made up of experts in the field. For some grant programs, a layperson is also included as a panelist. A layperson for the NEA is defined as a person not working directly in the arts. And all of our panels are diverse in terms of geography, gender, ethnicity, and expertise. The panel recommendations are then submitted to the National Council on the Arts for their review and approval. The council then forwards its recommendations to the chairman of the National Endowment for the Arts, and the chairman provides the final review and approval. If you are interested in being part of this process, we are always looking for new panelists, and we'll talk a little bit more about how to serve as a panelist at the very end of our meeting. One other comment on our process: panel feedback is always available to applicants. If you apply and you're not recommended for a grant, we encourage you to reach out to your staff contact and request panel feedback. It can be really helpful to hear what parts of your application resonated with panelists, or if there were things that they might have had questions and concerns on.
So these are the different funding categories offered by the NEA. First is the partnership agreements, and those are only available to designated state arts agencies and regional arts organizations. The NEA has funding opportunities for organizations. So those include grants for arts projects, Challenge America, Our Town, and our research grants. And this is the largest area of the grants that we offer, and nonprofits receive a bulk of this direct funding. Grants for individuals are somewhat limited to literature fellowships, although we do offer recognition to jazz artists through our NEA Jazz Masters program and to folk and traditional artists through our National Heritage Fellowship program. Generally, you can submit one application per year per organization. However, there are exceptions to that rule, so make sure you check the guidelines for clarity. And this exception is particularly important with the American Rescue Plan because you are allowed to submit for some of these grants as well as the American Rescue Plan. Recently, the St. Charles Arts Council was funded to support the commission of a new work by artist Amanda Broder. Local artists and surrounding communities will be engaged in a sewing session led by the artists, and that will result in a temporary, large-scale, site-specific textile installation in downtown St. Charles. So this is just one example of a project that was funded in your community, but we always want to see more applications because if we have more applications, then we can fund more organizations in your community.
The NEA offers partnership agreement grants to the 50 designated state arts agencies, 6 territories, and the 6 regional arts organizations. And the color coding on this map aligns each state with its regional arts organization. By law, 40% of the NEA's grant funds are designated for the states and regions. And by supporting the state arts agencies and the regional arts organizations through these partnership agreements, the Arts Endowment is able to make grants available in many more communities than we could through our direct grant programs alone.
So we mentioned there are 3 of our primary funding programs for arts organizations. Those are Challenge America, Grants for Arts Projects, and Our Town. So next we'll focus on some details about each of these programs.
Challenge America primarily supports small organizations to extend the reach of the arts to populations that are underserved. All grantees must address how their organization or their audience has been underserved. And this term is defined by our legislation and agency policy, and it refers to those whose opportunities to experience the arts are limited relative to geography or ethnicity or economics or disability. For Challenge America, all awards are $10,000 and they require a 1-to-1 match. The program includes an abbreviated application, and we also have really robust technical assistance for this program. And the deadline for Challenge America is typically in April each year.
So the Our Town program provides support for creative placemaking projects. So what do we exactly mean by creative placemaking? So the most simple definition is about strengthening local communities through arts and culture. Creative placemaking is when arts, culture, and design activities are deliberately integrated into efforts that strengthen communities. And the Our Town projects ultimately lay the groundwork for systemic change that sustains the integration of arts, culture, and design into local strategies. So there are some additional requirements for the Our Town program. So first, the eligibility does require a partnership between a nonprofit and local government. Grants range for this program from $25,000 to $150,000 with a 1-to-1 required match. The guidelines are actually up right now, and the deadline is coming up on August the 5th. There is a webinar that's going to be offered next Wednesday, June 30th at 3 p.m. Central Time. And you can find a link to register for that webinar on our website.
Now let's look at the NEA's largest funding stream, which is the Grants for Arts Projects program. Applications are submitted to one of 15 disciplines at either the February or the July deadline each year. And the next deadline for the Grants for Arts Projects program is coming right up on July 8th. Funding is available for all stages of the artistic process. That can include creation, presentation, and exhibition. We support arts education and enrichment, as well as services to the field, things like conferences and professional development. All grants will require at least a 1-to-1 match. The awards range from $10,000 to $100,000, and the project timeline can be for up to 2 years.
So we support projects in the Grants for Arts projects across 15 artistic disciplines. You'll see those across the screen here. And there are guidelines for each discipline that are posted on our website. So to apply, you would choose the appropriate discipline based on the content of your project. And then you'd follow the guidelines and application instructions for that specific discipline. We encourage you to look through the discipline-specific guidelines and reach out to staff with any questions. Contact information for our full staff, including each artistic discipline, is available on our website. And we are extremely available to talk over and discuss any potential project or application that you might be considering submitting.
In addition to our regular annual grant programs, the National Endowment for the Arts will distribute $135 million from the American Rescue Plan. Of that amount, 40% has been allocated to state and regional arts organizations for re-granting through their own programs. And then we will distribute the remaining 60% to arts organizations and local arts agencies. And these program guidelines for these new programs were just posted yesterday. So you can find them now online on our website, which is arts.gov. The deadline for the local subgranting program is July 22nd, and the deadline for organizations is August 12th. Funding will be available for general operating support, and guidelines were developed to reach a broad constituency, including organizations that serve populations that are underserved, organizations with small and medium-sized budgets, organizations from rural to urban communities, and organizations that may be applying for federal support through the Arts Endowment for the very first time. We have a lot of helpful information posted on our website. It is under the Applicant Resources tab in the American Rescue Plan guidelines. This includes a document that outlines common mistakes that we see in the application process. There's a list of FAQs, there are short tutorial videos, and much more. You'll find all sorts of things in that applicant resources section. We will also be hosting a guidelines webinar on June 30th at 3 p.m. that goes into much more detail about this opportunity, and you can register to attend that webinar in advance. And then we'll also be hosting applicant Q&A sessions. We'll be doing this 2 times a week leading up to all of the deadlines. So there will be lots of chances for you to connect with us and talk all about this opportunity.
So whichever program you decide to apply for, the process is the same. It's a 2-part process. Part 1 is where you work with 2 federal government systems, the System for Award Management, also known as SAM, and grants.gov. You will need up-to-date registrations and correct permissions through each of these systems to apply for funding. And once you have those current accounts in both systems, the actual form that you submit for Part 1 is really short. It provides, you would provide basic information about your organization, and it really shouldn't take too long to fill out. You aren't required to submit any specific details about the project at that step. So think of this as you're submitting for your intent to apply. It's a way to express your interest in submitting the full application.
And then part 2 is our actual Arts Endowment Grant application form. This is where you will submit the bulk of your application and all of the specifics about your project. You'll put together your project narrative, the budget, details on key personnel, and your work samples. The grant application form is submitted through our own Arts Endowment online platform, which is called the Applicant Portal. The guidelines for each of our funding programs, and again, these are all posted on our website at arts.gov. These instructions include, the guidelines include step-by-step instructions on using the Applicant Portal and how to apply. The instructions for Part 2 include a specific application instructions document. And this document is going to go through all of the questions that you'll need to answer for Part 2. It includes not just the questions themselves, but we also have helpful tips in there, screenshots of the applicant portal, and the character count for each application field. So you can compile all of your application content in advance, and then you'll enter all of that information into the NEA's applicant portal during the designated time frame that the portal is open.
So we would love to stay connected with you, we would love to have the National Endowment for the Arts connect with you. And we do release regular newsletters that highlight upcoming grant program deadlines, as well as events and resources. It's really a great way to keep up with what's going on at the Arts Endowment and field news from around the country. So we encourage you to subscribe. You can go to our website at arts.gov, and at the very bottom of the homepage, there's a button for you to click for newsletters. And in there, you'll see there's a whole list of newsletters, and you can click any topics that are most interest to you and most relevant to your organization.
And then one last reminder, and that is that we are always looking for new voices to bring into our panel process. It is a great way to connect with us and to really learn what the process is like from the other side. We have been told many times by folks that have participated in this process that it's a great professional development opportunity. So if you are interested, you can fill out a form on our website at the URL that is listed here, or you can always contact us directly as well.
So I think we have gotten to the end of our slides. Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Lara, for such a thorough breakdown of all of our programs. And we'll open it up for questions. I've been trying to answer some of the questions coming in through the Q&A box. This is certainly the time, and we have plenty of time left to answer your questions. Jessica, I'll throw it back to you to see if you have questions that are coming in. If not, we can address some of the ones that have already come in through the Q&A box.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, you guys. That was a great presentation and really helpful. So just a reminder to everyone, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. It looks like Michael did already answer a few, and I have a few more in the chat to go over. But if you guys want to go over your frequently asked questions really quick, give people some time to think through what more information they need and submit them in the Q&A, that'd be great.
Fantastic. Thank you. So the first question that is a recurring question: does my project have to be outside the scope of my regular programming? And the answer is no. A project can be part of an applicant's regular season or activity. For example, a theater company's educational activities that occur year-round could constitute an acceptable project. Other projects might be a workshop production of a work in progress or a charrette sponsored by a community design center. What is important is the specificity of the activities involved. Also, there can be no overlap with projects for which you are already receiving other National Endowment for the Arts or federal funds. Next question: my organization doesn't have its own 501c3. Do you fund fiscal sponsors? That probably comes up every 15 minutes. And the answer is unfortunately no, we are not permitted to fund fiscal sponsors through grant funds. Another recurring question: if we apply for grants for arts projects in July, can we also apply to the American Rescue Plan general operating support? And the answer is yes. The American Rescue Plan relief funding is in addition to any regular cycle grant funds. You just need to make sure you don't have overlapping costs in your budget. And the last question on my docket: if I apply to my state arts agency for the American Rescue Plan funds, can I also apply to the National Endowment for the Arts directly? And this is not a perfect yes or no answer. We would say you should check, in this case with the Illinois Arts Council, you'd want to check directly with them. Each state is handling their American Rescue Plan funds slightly different. The National Endowment for the Arts does not make you choose between us and your state arts agency. However, your state may have restrictions, so you'll want to check with them. And that covers some of our recurring questions. Jessica, I'll throw it back to you and see if there's questions coming in the box.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. Okay, so the first question came from Joni in our chat, and it was, how strict are you if someone hasn't received an arts grant before in the past?
Strict meaning we don't like it or we do like it. I'm gonna say that, sorry, go ahead.
No, it just says, how strict are you if an organization has never received an arts grant? So does that impact their ability to receive funding in the future, or how do you guys look at that? And Joni, if you're listening and you want to clarify your question a little bit in the chat, feel free.
So just general take on that question. So we encourage new applicants all the time. In fact, the Challenge America program is designed to help support new organizations to be successful. Also, organizations that haven't been successful previously, we encourage them to kind of start at Challenge America if that's a good fit. But certainly you're eligible if you have 3 years of arts programming history. That's really the main eligibility point for that. But otherwise, we really do encourage new organizations.
Great, thank you so much. So it looks like Joni said, thank you. I thought I'd read if you hadn't received an arts grant, you're not eligible, but you answered my question. So thank you. All right, thank you, Joni. Okay, so next up is Ian. He said, thank you for your presentation. I see that you cannot fund facility construction. Can you define facility? Would a city's artistic outdoor path, for example, be a facility?
That is a good question. And so the short answer is that we are able to support arts components. So if, for example, you're doing integrated public art, we can support the arts elements of that. We're not able to support capital projects or construction on its own, but if there's an art element, that's the part that we are able to support.
Great, thank you. Ian, hopefully that answered your question. If you have any other follow-ups, feel free to send another Q&A question or let us know in the chat if that helped. Okay, next question is Kathy. How many applications do you receive annually?
I can take a stab at that. This year is going to be quite different. For Grants for Arts Projects, which is our our largest funding stream, we're probably receiving anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 applications a year that combines both deadlines. Challenge America, I would say roughly about 200. I'm looking for nods from Mary and Lara. And our town had a huge spike, and I will say we saw a huge spike in applications once the pandemic hit. So our town probably receives somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 to 500 applications per year. CARES, and maybe Lara or Mary will remember, we received a ton, and we're expecting probably double that for American Rescue Plan. But that gives you at least a sense of some of the applications coming in.
And I'll just add that for the American Rescue Plan, it looks like we're going to fund roughly like 800 applications. That's what's in our guidelines right now. So that's just a helpful hint. Just to give you an idea, for CARES, we received, I think, over 2,000 applications for that. As when we were able to fund around the same amount. We're anticipating a lot more, as Michael said, for an ARP, just because we have a much wider pool, and you don't have to be a former applicant this time around. So.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so this question comes from John Russell. There are 10 statues and murals in a now closed school building in our community. The city owns the building, and we're looking for support to remove the statues and murals from the school building, restore them, and put them on display for the public. Is the grants for the arts project the best grant to apply for? And I can read that again if that would be helpful.
Sure, read it one more time just so I can hear the beginning.
Okay.
And I'll answer
So
it.
there are 10 statues and murals in a now closed school building in the community, and the city owns the building. So they want to remove the statues and the murals from the school building. They want to restore them, and then they want to put them on display for the public. So his question was, is the Grants for Arts project the best grant to apply for.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear, was who the application would be coming from. So if I'm understanding, if the application is coming from the city, you could take a look at the local arts agency's discipline in Grants for Arts projects. So we mentioned that Grants for Arts projects accepts projects for 15 disciplines, and you select your discipline and apply through that program. And so for local arts agencies, we'll review applications from municipal government, city and counties, and we do support preservation of public art and public art projects. So yes, take a look at that. So again, it's within Grants for Arts projects, and it's the local arts agency's discipline.
And
Okay, great. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
Outside of the National Endowment for the Arts, there's a program, and I believe it's called Save America's Treasures. It's a program, I believe, administered by the National Park Service. We are involved with a couple other agencies, and I could throw it in the chat box if I can find the chat box. Yeah, there it is. But that might be something. I have no idea if this relates, but I'll put it in the chat box.
Great, thank you, Michael. And then if there's ever, just want to say I'm sorry to introduce myself. My name is Jessica Beasold. I'm the Congresswoman's Outreach Director, and I do her grants outreach. And if there's ever, a program or a project you're working on and want to get some advice or see if we can connect you to other grants opportunities, just feel free to reach out to our office, and we can kind of help you do that research. Okay, so next question is from Jessica Campbell. Should the 3 years of programming history be directly related to the project for which we're applying for funding?
It does not need to be. It needs to be arts programming, but it certainly does not need to be related to the project you're applying for. In fact, most applications that come in are new projects, and they're not necessarily recurring projects. So as long as the 3-year history is arts programming, it does not need to be related to the project you're applying for.
Okay, great. So our next question is from Mary. What exactly is an underserved population?
Well, I have to take that one, right? Because it's such a great name. So we have a very specific definition of that, and it's based on legislative and agency policy. And what that means is those who have limited access to the arts relative to one of 4 categories. So geography, ethnicity, economics, or disability. So in the Challenge America application, we actually ask applicants to select one or more of those categories and then describe how they're going to be planning to work with underserved populations. So if you were, for an example, if you were to live in a really rural area or a suburban area and you just didn't have access and there wasn't public transportation, you could make the argument that you fit the geographic category. If you were in an urban area that also didn't have access, perhaps it was financial access, then perhaps economics would be the argument, and you would provide some data points about median income and other stats that you could find on census.gov to plug into your application to explain how your audience and or population that you're going to be working with is underserved.
And I'll just say that you asked a great question, Mary, and Mary, you did a great job answering it. We're all grinning because this is a question that we're constantly asking ourselves and how to best address it. So it's an excellent question that we are talking about on a daily basis.
Great, thank you guys. Okay, so this one comes from the chat box, and it's from Stacy. And she said, what is considered a 3-year history of arts programming where we are small and needs art programming on a regular basis?
The 3-year history of arts programming will do a couple of things in your application. And the first thing it'll do is demonstrate your eligibility. So to be eligible to apply, you need to be able to show that you have at least 3 years, a history of having done some level of programming prior to submitting the application. So the way that you'll show that in your application There will be 3 fields, 3 boxes, and you will put in there a description of the programming that you've done each year over the last 3 years. So it is demonstrating your eligibility. It also relates to, it gives you a chance to talk about the experience of your organization and the types of things that have been happening in your community, and how that might relate to the project that you're proposing for your current application.
And I'll just add that due to the pandemic, we used to have very strict, like 2018, 2019, 2020. And if you weren't able to meet that, then you weren't eligible. For our current guidelines, we have a little bit more flexibility. So if you didn't do anything in 2020 because COVID happened and you had your first programming was scheduled to be in April, that's okay, as long as you're able to show that you started at, around that time frame. So you might show 2017, 2018, 2019, you might go back a little bit, or you might show something that that was happening in 2021. So just letting people know that nuance.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, this is the last question I have in the Q&A, and I don't see any more in the chat. So if you guys have any more questions, please submit them, and we'll make sure we can get to them before we wrap up. But this one is from Chrissy, and she said, would arts programming and operations within colleges and universities qualify for rescue plan funding?
Go ahead, Lara, if you want.
I'll just start by saying that, so if we're talking specifically about the American Rescue Plan program, it will have the basic eligibility requirements that the organization that's applying needs to be federally tax exempt, and that does include, in many cases, educational institutions. You need to have that 3-year programming history. And then if you've received grants in the past, you just need to be up to date on your reporting. So yes, as long as the college or university meets those things, then you could take a look at American Rescue Plan.
Okay, we got another question that came in. All right, Joanne, raising funds to build a Flag Day monument, advice for any funds we could apply for.
Joanne, I'll just jump in and say that, and Mary or Lara referenced it in the slides. While we don't fund construction and actual building of things, in this case a monument, we can fund design and charrettes. So there is an opportunity. I think we need to know more information, and I would recommend you reach out to the specialists, perhaps in the design discipline, but we do fund design, charrettes, models. Lara, Mary, I don't know if other information to share.
Yeah, I would just say that we fund public art in a lot of different places across the agency. So it's really important that you reach out to really any of our specialists, and they'll be able to point you in the right direction of, oh, you're developing a monument and this is the stuff that you want us to support. They might be able to tell you, you know what, that'd actually be a better fit in visual arts, or maybe that'd be a better fit in Challenge America or local arts agencies. So there's a lot of different places where public art can be funded. And if you're talking about a monument in the terms of there's so many different types of monument, right? It could be a sculpture, it could be a building, it could be, so it sort of also depends on that as well. But certainly we fund public art, sculptures, design elements on buildings, that sort of thing, all over it. Lara, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but.
I think you just said it great. The only point that I was going to make is that there are opportunities in Challenge America and in Grants for Arts Projects and Our Town. So I think Mary's advice is right on that. Take a look at the program description for those and then reach out to the staff, and we can help kind of guide you to what makes the most sense depending on the specifics of the project.
And I just put a link in the chat for how to reach out to staff.
Okay, great. Yeah, that was Mary Ellen's question. How do you reach an NEA specialist? So thank you, Michael, for sharing that link. So last call for any questions that you want to submit through the Q&A. I'm just going to quickly address one that Michael had responded to about getting a copy of the slides, and just note that we are recording this. We can provide a link for everyone that attended and all the people that RSVP'd but couldn't make it. Mary, I don't know, are we able to share a copy of the slides that you used during the presentation with the attendees?
Yeah, I can send you that, so you can send it out.
Okay, great. So we'll be sending those around to everyone that attended as well. Okay, so no more questions. So thank you guys so much. We really appreciate Michael, Mary, and Laura for you guys being here. And we appreciate everyone that attended. Please, as I said, reach out to our office if we can ever be of assistance with applying for a federal grant. As the Congresswoman said, you can reach us at underwood.house.gov. And I shared a link to sign up for our grant newsletter, as well as download our grant resource guide. And we'd always be happy to help you. So thank you guys so much. I hope everyone has a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.